Hi everyone, I'm with Bryce Holdaway, the co-host of The Property Couch, which is actually my very favourite podcast in the property scene. So where Ben and Bryce talk all things property advisory, and really give us a heads up as to what to expect in the market and some really good hot tips around property here in Australia. So, I mean, I feel like your spiel and all of the things that you've done, Bryce, we could be here for an hour. So that is certainly the number one thing. But you also are a partner at Empower Wealth, which advises on all things property. You're the co-host of Relocation Australia and Location Australia on Foxtel. You are a qualified buyer's advocate, a financial planner, and now I feel like I need to take a breath. So welcome.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the intro. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yeah, awesome. So first of all, I want to cut straight to the call-in that we've had around our property query.
Hey, Leonie. Really excited to be part of the pod. I think you guys have done a fantastic job in shining the light on some of the less glamorous aspects of being a parent, and that's certainly been helpful for me and my partner as first-time parents. The thing that really sort of keeps us up at night at the moment is, we've just transitioned from being sort of early 30s, traveling the world, focusing on careers, into being a family, and it's been a really beautiful transition for us. And we love our daughter Luna to the bits. She's 20 months old at this point in time. We've obviously gone through that whole experience of having her and Ali being pregnant during COVID, and we were also living interstate and away from our family, so that was quite an isolating experience for us. And we've recently just moved back to Melbourne, and I guess the thing that really is missing from our lives a little bit now is being able to kind of set up a future for ourselves, and a big part of that is owning a home and having a place to call home. It's just been a really topsy-turvy few years for the housing market, and it's I guess getting even more confusing now. We came pretty close to buying a place the end of last year, and the housing market just kind of got away from us. We were going to online auctions with 30 plus people registered who were looking to buy, and the first bids being 20% over the guide price, to now sort of looking down the barrel of all of these interest rate increases. So that's the thing that makes it difficult for us to kind of take the next step with our family and finding our family home and starting to build that life for us back in Melbourne.
Okay, Bryce. So firstly, I mean, I think this is such a real stress for us parents. I mean, it's one of those ones where you step into a phase of your life. A lot of our listeners are parents with young children, so typically sort of under the age of 5. You've gone from footloose and fancy free, where are we going out for dinner tonight? And then next minute you're dealing with childcare costs and all these, Huggies, nappies have gone up in price, and all of these things, all of these additional expenses we've never had to have, as well as a feeling as though we need to move into a new house and have bigger, more space, etc., etc. So it is a real stress for young parents. And I guess first and foremost, I mean, I know you've got children, so you could probably speak to this as well. I mean, what was your experience, even just anecdotally, during that phase of your life?
Torture.
Yeah.
I say that because at the time when my firstborn Jack, who's now 11, was born, I was still traveling and doing the show, and so we navigated pregnancy with me being away, which wasn't amazing for my wife, I must admit. And then understanding how the challenges that children, like the wonderful joys, but also the challenges that we're learning on the run, whilst I was traveling. So it was an interesting time. We've now got 2. Our second came 21 months later, Samuel. So we had 2 young ones. So all credit to my wife, who juggled 2 young boys whilst I was filming. But I did get the luxury of being able to spend some time with Jack when he was first born. I wasn't committed in the business. I wasn't filming. It was only during the pregnancy and the early part of his birth that I was finishing off the season. So I got some really great time to spend with him. But I do understand the stresses and the juggle that is modern day living with careers, families, everything that we've got to juggle. So
absolutely,
props to you for putting out some really great content to help people, because there wasn't a lot around when I was cooking Leonie, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, I love it. And so, I mean, you've been there, as I said, you get it. I mean, I actually want to bring my own story to the table. Obviously, this caller has had a bit of an negative experience, a little bit of anxiety around the property market, missing out on things. I mean, I was there 6 months ago. The market was on heat. I actually live in inner city Melbourne, so I'm in South Yarra. We were looking in the surrounding areas for a little bit more land. I know that if I want to stay nearby, it's not going to be a huge lot, but just something where we have more than a courtyard. Right at the moment, we have a courtyard for the kids to play in. And so anyway, found the perfect home, was all excited, went to 3 inspections, got the whole family there. I was like, this is my house. I'm very competitive. So I was like, this is mine. I'd worded up the agents. I was like, yep, I'm like, we're quite keen. I'm actually in the property game as well. My dad's a builder. So he came, checked it all out, happy days. I was locked in. So then we made an offer a week after the property had come to the market, made our offer, and it was at the top end of the range. I'm like, let's just get this done. I'm not stuffing around. The agent said, look, that's a very strong offer. However, we have to hold an auction in 24 hours time and get everyone else who's interested to the party, and then you can just fight it out. I was like, great. How many other people are interested? He says, oh, there's only one other family, and I reckon you've got this. And I was like, okay. So 24 hours of, thinking about it and all that, and where am I going to put my couch and all this stuff. Anyway, so we rock up to the auction. It is over Zoom during COVID. I turn on the screen, the Zoom link, and there are 10 people staring back at me. And I was like, didn't he say there was only one other family? And he even said, if anyone else is interested, out of courtesy, I will let you know. So I'm there looking at the screen. And then like within 52 seconds, my little offer had been blown out of the park and I had no heads up on it. And I was distraught. And so that's what we were dealing with, particularly 6 months ago in what was happening here in Melbourne. I actually ended up getting a buyer's advocate after that because I'm like, I can't deal with this. I don't have the time. I don't have the emotional willpower. And I know obviously that's your area too. So I want to explore that as well. But I think first and foremost, this is what we're dealing with often. And it's so much more emotional, I feel, when you have children, because you're starting to think about where they're going to live and where the next chapter of your life will be. So I don't know. Fuda, what are your thoughts around how we can best kind of do our research up front? And I felt I was quite well researched, but, set ourselves up for, fewer failures when it comes to, when you're ready to sort of make that big move and purchase the home.
Yeah, good story there too for everyone to learn from, because clearly you burn some money as well. You get building inspections done. You might get a solicitor to review it, and if they charge you, so you can be burning cash if you don't get it right. So I think the best advice I could give to anyone who's listening to this, irrespective of whether you're a parent or not, is to just really understand the role of the real estate agent, because what you just experienced was something that happens every day of every week of every campaign right across the country, because you've got a real estate agent who does not get paid by the hour. They get paid by a result. And what's super helpful to understand is that a real estate agent is in the profile game. So which means for them to eat tomorrow, they have to do a really good job today to attract as many other people to see what they do so that they can have a chance of having another job tomorrow. So when they say to you, reel back what you said, hey, there's only 2 other people, you're one, I reckon that's a strong, like these are cliches that get dropped all the time. And as a buyer's agent, that keeps us in business, but it doesn't help anyone who can't afford a buyer's agent or has experienced some of what you've experienced. So number one is understand a real estate agent gets paid on results. Number 2, their client is the vendor, not you. Now, they might be friendly to you. They might see you as an important part of the transaction, but mark my words, they are generally not interested in the buyer. They're not interested in your emotion. They're not interested in your experience through. It doesn't mean that they want the worst for you. It just means it's not their agenda. Their agenda is to get a really great result for their seller. And if they do get a great result for the seller, remember what their job is to try and get tomorrow's job, so they can stand up on the top of the hill with their arms out going, look how great I did, Mr. and Mrs. Future Seller. because you should employ me. And so that's number one. Number two is a real estate agent uses mental weapons, right? They use scarcity, they use urgency, and they use competition through the fear of missing out. So the Zoom environment was a perfect environment to get that, because they can say things to you and then you turn up and there's 12 people. You go, what just happened, right?
Yeah.
And so that's important to understand, that they are trying. If you think of it as an analogy of the fish swimming in a lake, there's one big fish in that lake surrounded by a number of smaller fish. They want to use the smaller fish to get the big fish into position, right? And unfortunately, the smaller fish, we're talking about humans, and they use you to jockey for position to get their competition to get the highest price. So that's another thing. So therefore, what can you do? What can your listener do who just called in? Well, I would make the sold tab on the real estate portals, realestate.com, domain, whichever one that needs to be your friend for a fair bit of time. You need to get a spreadsheet and you need to find a property that you like and put it at the top of the spreadsheet, and then go to the sold tab and look for other properties that have sold, right? Nothing that's on the market now, because you can't work out what the price guides mean. Some agents have a price guide that is bang on, and other agents have a price guide that is designed to get us to land the big fish with the little fish, right? So it's important that we are fully informed, because as soon as you understand value, someone puts a listing on, you go, wow, I can see it's got a north-facing backyard. It's in an A street. That price guide they've got there is a work of fiction, because I know that one sold last week. I know that one sold 2 weeks ago. I know I've been through this one yesterday. So you actually become a better expert in that little niche that you're looking at than often the real estate agent, because they might have one at 2 million, they might have one at 700,000, they might have one at 1.3, but you are laser-like focused on your budget and what's happening. So there's my two biggest tips, is to make sure that you understand that the real estate agent doesn't get paid by their time, they get paid by results, and what that actually means. So therefore, they have a reputation of being some of the least trustworthy people for a reason. It doesn't mean they've got bad character. It just means that they say things to get the best outcome for the client. And two, if you're fully informed, you're not going to fall for price guides that aren't reflective. So there's a couple of easy wins that people can quickly get a better understanding, so they don't burn cash through the experience, because it is emotional. You're 100% right.
And I think at the time, 6 months ago, there was a big aspect of FOMO. So I'd done my research. I knew what the market was doing. I was obsessed with one suburb only. So I really felt as though I was an expert. All of a sudden, though, there was FOMO. So it was, what it sold for was not what it was worth. I'm curious now, because, I'm looking in the same suburb now and the prices have fallen, right? Not dramatically, but, they've eased off to what I think is a much better value proposition, which is fantastic. However, if I'm now looking at the sold, I'm sitting there going, okay, well, what happened 4 months ago is not really as relevant. I'm looking at the last kind of 3 weeks and maybe a little bit before that, so it's a smaller pool of sold to look for. So how do we best navigate the fair price sort of conversation in this market?
Well, it's a bit of the same, right? But you answered it quite well, where you've got to get a narrower view of what's sold. You might need to go over. You need to talk to some agents. You need to build relationships with agents. Now is a good time to be building relationships with agents. Ask questions like, have you had any building inspections done? Rather than, why are they selling? Or are there any other offers? And all the standard, you've got to ask creative ways of getting the agent to give you some intel without them realizing what you're doing, because they're doing that to you. You walk through, and if your kids are a bit older, they say, go and have a quick look through, and then the kids just wander around. They ask the kids questions to get some leading intel, right? Yeah. So that's the same thing with you. How many building inspections have been done? What are the rules of engagement? If you receive an offer, what does that look like? Some people say, great, highest and best by 5 o'clock tomorrow. Others will go, well, I'll present that to the vendor. And they might shop it around, and they might ring up people and say, hey, listen, I've got an offer for $890. Can you beat it? And they go, yeah, I can do $895. And then they ring the next person and go, I've got one for $895. Can you beat it? So you've got to work out what the rules of engagement are. Narrow your field of comps, but the process is still the same, and also reading sentiment in the market. But you're in where you're looking is one of the most highly desired parts
of course. It's like, gosh.
The southeast suburbs of Melbourne is right up there with the North Shore of Sydney and the eastern beaches in Sydney. Right, that's I call for those people that are listening in and understand Melbourne geography, you got Richmond, Hawthorn, Kew. If you're looking at a map, you've got Richmond, Hawthorn, Kew, and then if you could do a paintbrush stroke right through to the bay, just do that swirly paintbrush stroke. That's called the Fertile Crescent of Melbourne. And so competition is high, even though the demand, the sentiment in the market has dropped a little, doesn't necessarily equate to prices dropping. All it means is instead of in the peaks there was 8 people or 12 people on a Zoom, you might do that same auction now and only have 3, but there's still 3 people. And they're still hungry for the property and they're still competing for it. So, so I guess the principles remain the same. Understand what the real estate agent, their role in the transaction is, not to be your friend and inform you best. And secondly, arm yourself with some comparable sales. Turn up at auctions. See what the auctioneer is like. Work out the price guide versus the actual selling price. Start to identify some trends. These are the things that you can't replace to not put yourself in a place where the agent has the position of strength. If you want the position of strength back, you've got to take that with some research. And that's why a buyer's agent, you used one, I am one. We've got a team of buyer's agents in our business at Empower Wealth, because that stuff that I just talked about is happening in their mind daily. And we've got, we see scores of properties, we analyse them, we backtest them. So hopefully that might give some insights into, doesn't change where the market is, it just changes the approach that you do to those two things.
Getting some power back. And what I'm interested in as well is obviously when you're looking for a new property, particularly if you're a homeowner, you've got sort of your list of priorities. You're not going to get a house that has everything. So for us, lifestyle decision and being in a desirable suburb is very important. That means we're going to have to compromise on lot size and things like that in order to live there. So I'm curious, and I think it's a good conversation to have with those listening going, okay, but we've got 10 things that we really want. I mean, what are the key things you see from clients that we should be thinking about when we're going to sort of funnel into the home that would be the best for us?
Yeah, well, it depends if it's like I buy a lot for investing, which is different for buying for yourself, right? But there's a couple of things. You've got to have the top 3 that if there's 2 or more people involved, those top 3 need to be pre-agreed prior. So what are your top 3 things? Because when you get into the house and the emotions kick in, oh, I love it, that happens to us all. We need to be able to default that emotion back to some form of logic, right? So that's my first thing. These are our top 3 things. We said it must have natural light, right? That's a deal breaker for us if it doesn't. We walk in, we see the floor plan's amazing, we see it's in a great, but it's just dark as. We can get carried away with that. So it's those 3 things. The other thing to think about too is you are going to, unless you are blessed with unlimited budget, which most buyers aren't, you are going to compromise on one of 4 areas, right? And it's important to understand which of these 4 areas you're going to compromise on before you start the search. The first one is you're going to have to compromise on price. The second one is you compromise on location. The third one is you compromise on the size of the land. And the fourth one you compromise is the quality of dwelling. So price is self-explanatory. Location is that classic, I'd love to be in South Yarra, but what if I get to go over to Burnley, which is just over the other side of the river at the back end of Richmond. I'm kind of in the same area, and you go, no. My sister lives in South Yarra. The school I want to send the kids to is South Yarra, so that's fine. So price is fixed, location is fixed. Third one is size of the land. You've had that conversation in your own experience. Do I want to go to an apartment? I currently live in a townhouse. I've currently got a courtyard. I want a house. I want a bit more land, or I might do whatever it takes. So that's the size of the land conversation. Am I going to squeeze that land discussion because I'm fixed on price, location, and the fourth one, or am I going to expand that to I need a townhouse? And the last one is quality of dwelling. So let's say my price is fixed, my location is fixed, the size of the land I want is fixed. The only thing left is quality of dwelling. I have to buy a renovator. I have to buy something that's tired and run down. because if I'm not going to compromise in any of the other three areas, that's the last spot to go.
Yeah.
And vice versa, you can play that matrix around. If you do not have to compromise on price, as we said, pretty much you get what you want 9 times out of 10. But I've never really come across too many 10 out of 10 properties. I usually come across a lot of 8s and 8.5s, in some cases 9 out of 10s, but never 10 out of 10. So if you have that conversation prior with the significant decision makers in the transaction, if you're on your own, bounce it off a friend. If you're with someone else buying, make sure you're both rock solid on that. And then have your 3 deal breakers. I think that's going to set you up pretty well to not burn time, energy, and effort, because you've got kids in tow, you've got lots going on, you're trying to get to inspections. That one's competing with that one. The kids are hungry. I'm trying to get across town. What's going on?
Oh, it's so true. And I love that. Like for me, if I bring it back to my example, definitely we're just going to find a fixer-upper, right? And that means we'll stay in our current house for a little bit longer and we'll fix up the new one. And that's, that's what we're compromising on. So it's and I think it's really good the way you've just sort of laid that out quite simplistically and really good food for thought for people. I want to change tact. In your business, you talk a lot about, how we should be very clear on our budget, our expenditure. And really, I mean, I even heard in your last episode, you said, of course, interest rates are rising. We're paying, $27 for a capsicum these days, or whatever it looks like. But at the end of the day, there are things that are happening outside of our control, and you've got tools, and I'm more than happy for you to talk about those as well, which help you better manage your day-to-day expenditure and understand where your, money is going. So I would love for you to give us, to appease the anxiety a little bit, because I know there's a lot of anxiety out there with where things are going at the moment with inflation and interest rates, etc. And let's get back to basics, the core things that we can be doing in our households now to better manage our finances and put us in a better position to purchase that house.
I'm a pretty simple guy. I need to have simple frameworks and simple formulas, right? And the number one thing is we have to make sure that we spend less than we earn. And you might just sort of scoff at that, but the amount of times I see clients come in who are not doing that basic fundamental, they're living on credit as if the credit is their own. And if they let that get out of control, it becomes a debt spiral that you can't get out of. So number one is make sure that you're living within your means. You are spending less than what you earn, okay? Kind of basic, but let's make sure we've ticked the box, number one. Then number two is we wrote a book called Make Money Simple Again. Anyone can go to makemoneysimpleagain.com.au and get the free copy of it, right?
Yeah, it's a great book, by the way. I have read it. So it's excellent.
Thank you. The idea is really simple. There is a very popular book in the marketplace, and credit where credit's due. It's Scott Pape and the Barefoot Investor, right? And most of the principles in that book are wonderful, with one exception, and that's for us. There isn't a mention of an offset account. So if someone has a mortgage, generally speaking, most of our biggest expense is usually going towards the roof over our head and the mortgage. So by ignoring that fundamental fact, I think is a missed opportunity, despite the fact everything else in that book is wonderful. So what we did in our book is we said, well, here's a really basic system where if you were to use your offset account and bring everything into that, so your salary, your wages, birthday money, lotto win, if you've got dividends, rent received, every single bit of inflow needs to go into your offset account that is against your most expensive debt, which is typically our home because we're the only one paying off for it. Everything goes in there. And then that becomes the central hub from which everything comes out of. All the money in, all the money out. So think about the primary account, number one. Number two, you need a simple debit card, all right? And that debit card is how you pay yourself on a weekly basis. So let's say you spend $250 a week on entertainment, groceries, whatever it is. It could be 500 for some, 100 for others, but let's just use $250 is what you spend every 7 days within your family to live your best version of that next 7 days. I would say consider that as when you get paid, right? So my wife and I, we paid out of our offset account on a Thursday. It goes into our debit card. And then all we've got to do for the next 7 days is manage that balance. We don't have to micromanage where it's gone. We don't have to put it into an app and say I spent that much on a latte and that much on a newspaper and that much on a movie and that much on a piece of steak. We just say Our only job for 7 days is to swim between the flag and only spend what we've allocated based on a budget, right? And if we do that, it's a successful win. And if we don't, we will go into the trap of losing our surplus. So that's number one. Number two is have a credit card. Now, a little disclaimer, if you're an average money manager or below, don't get a credit card, because you don't need one if that is a temptation that is too great for you. But if you're an average money manager or better, you can use a credit card. And what you do with that is you get it automatically swept every month on the due date, the amount that's due. So you don't have to commit it to memory. You don't have to accidentally forget the payment. It just is automatic. Just ring the bank, go online, do whatever it takes to get that automatically paid. And then what you do with the credit card is you do not use it for discretionary spending at all. So what you do is you get your mobile phone bill, get it automatically direct debited onto your credit card, get your insurance, whatever your bills and payments are, you put it onto the credit card. And the reason you do that is because you've got up to 55 days interest free. So that means that more money is sitting on your offset account. Interest is calculated daily, paid monthly, so it's reducing the balance for longer. You're actually using the bank's money for up to 55 days. And if you're disciplined, you never use that for discretionary. It's automatically swept, so you're never paying interest on it. And you're maximizing and optimizing the amount of money that's sitting on your offset account. And then basically what you do then is you have passive loan accounts. So the mortgage that comes out of the primary account, I have in other investment properties. So I've got other loans, they come in and out of the primary account. That is it. That's all you do. Now, if you don't have a mortgage, instead of having that primary account attached to your mortgage, you just go and get the highest interest savings account that you can get your hands on with the lowest fees. And that's how you can build up the deposit so you can get into the market. Or if you have a mortgage, have an offset account. It is super simple. We lay it out. There's even a picture in the book that you can download and set it up. And then you can just get some peace around how to manage your money and get on with doing what you're doing. Because if you're just focused on we call it a 7-day float. And if you pay on a Thursday and had a good weekend, come to Tuesday and you're running thin, here's what most people do when they run thin on a Tuesday. They walk down, you're at South Yarra there, so you'll walk down to Chapel Street or one of the main streets there, and you'll go to the IGA, or you go to Coles, or you go to Macro Foods or whatever, and you'll tap. Because Tuesday you ran out of, and you'll tap, it'll go on the credit card, and poof, that's where it blows out. Whereas someone who's got a system that they manage, they go, Tuesday, right, I'm not getting paid again until Thursday. I've got a choice here. I've run out of money on my debit card, which is my money. It's not the bank's money. The debit card is my money. I've run out of money. I've got two choices. What I do is I trot back home and I open the pantry and I open the fridge and I go, you know what? I can actually make a meal out of that, and I can actually do that tomorrow, and I can actually get myself through to Thursday because I don't get paid on Thursday. Or you can do what the most of the population do is they'll go and tap and get some more groceries, but at least you're doing it consciously.
Yeah, I love it. You know what? Honestly, your book was a game changer. And I did read The Barefoot Investor as well. And I think, look, to be fair, combination of all of that, now I do exactly that. I'm like, okay, well, if there's no money in the account, then I've spent it all. And then you become so much more conscious. So now, and then you kind of get into a flow where it's been a while since I've had no money in that account, So I don't even have a credit card. I've got one for work, but I just don't have one. But I just think it's so simple to just say, well, I've got $100 to spend for the week or whatever it looks like. If I go over that, then that's it. Like, rather than sitting there, as you said, I had spreadsheets. I was like, oh, that's how much I'm spending at like Bar Carolina on a Friday night with my girlfriends having cocktails. Oh, better put that in a highlighted yellow so I know not to spend that much again. And now it's just like, well, whatever's in the account is what I've got left. So I love that. For everyone listening, I will pop the details of your book in the episode notes. I would love you to give us a very quick exec sum version of your more potential app. I know it's online at the moment. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's basically, so all of the concepts in the book mean that you need to go away and you have to build a spreadsheet, and then you have to manually enter the details into the spreadsheet. So the More app is, we've had More for many, many years. It's a desktop version, so it's MOORR. So if you go Achieve More with More is our tag. So if you go to more.com.au, you can actually get access to it for free. And so what it does is it takes the principles within the Make Money Simple Again book and makes it super simple, right? So you put your details in. The book shows you that with about 90 minutes to 2 hours worth of upfront work, you can then manage your money in 10 minutes a month, right? So the book shows you how to set it up, and the more platform allows you to do it on a regular basis. No more spreadsheets, no more trying to work out how it works. And then excitingly, we're recording this in August you okay with me date stamping?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're recording this in August, and in September, hopefully we'll release the mobile version, because currently it's just desktop. But nobody takes their desktop with them when they're at the grocery store or anything. So we understand the market is demanding the mobile app. It's been something that we've been super excited. We've been building it all year, and hopefully that comes out. So thanks for the opportunity. I think there's value that we can add to your listeners, because the Make Money Simple Again book is free. The mobile app, the version that implements the book will always be free, so that people can actually bring the theory and the practice together and make it real at the point of where it matters, when we're making transactions. We have this statement that budgets don't work, and everyone goes, "What do you mean? Of course budgets work." And it's like, well, the subline is budgets alone don't work. But here's the deal: we all do our budget. Back to the point of the question for people who are struggling with increased costs. We always do our budget at the beginning of the month, and at the bottom it says it's in the green. We've got some surplus. Let's just say the surplus was going to be $500. What happens is we get to the end of the month, and stuff got in the way, all the stuff you and I were talking about before, tap and go, blowouts, all that stuff, and we go, "Oh, I plan to have 500, but I've only got 20. But it's still green. It's still positive." So that was a win and move on. But we slipped. We lost the 480. And in the context of the question from your listener, we've lost that 480, which can then compound up to build up a deposit. And then that deposit allows us to get into the property market. Because what I do know, and what I do want to say to your audience, is I've seen thousands, and that's not an exaggeration, but let's just keep it at 100. I've seen hundreds and hundreds of people who have, through their journey, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, getting to retirement, and without fail, the people who don't own their own home in retirement are usually the ones that are at a significant disadvantage. Because if they haven't set up any form of income in those later years, other than the pension, and they don't have a roof over their head, that is a world of pain, right? So I cannot encourage more the idea of prioritizing getting a roof over your head. Now, it used to be Jack and Jill went up the hill to get a petrophile of water. Now it's Jack and Jill went down the lift to fetch a baby Chino, right? Our quarter-acre block in suburbia is not what everyone can get anymore, right? Yeah. There is a spectrum. So it might mean that families do need to buy a 2-bedroom apartment and invest in that and build in the equity and slowly move up the ladder, or whatever it takes. Yeah. Some people might need to, who are living in South Yarra, might need to consider something like, okay, I love South Yarra. This is not you, but someone else. I love South Yarra, but I can only ever afford to rent here. You might need to think about, okay, why wouldn't I consider going to Geelong or Ballarat or Bendigo or something like that, or further out, so that you can actually get onto the property ladder? Because again, looking over the horizon, when you reach an age where you no longer can trade your labour for income just because of the life cycle, you will be 100% grateful that you got a roof over your head at that point in time, because I've seen heaps of people, you would experience too, Leonie, where they don't have that. It is a world of pain.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you bring in a good point, like rent vesting, they call it. Like, well, maybe I'll just continue renting, let's say in South Yarra, for example, if that's what they wanted to do, and then even purchase in Geelong. Is that what you're saying? Or because, I mean, to maintain that lifestyle, I guess, would that be another option for them?
Absolutely right. Yeah. So some people might say, yeah, great idea, Bryce, but I grew up in South Yarra. Yeah. My friends are in South Yarra. Yeah. My parents are in Camberwell. Yeah. It's just not possible for me to go to Bendigo or Ballarat. That's just so yes, you may consider then the option of rent vesting, which for those who don't understand what that means, it's I'm going to rent my current lifestyle and I'm going to invest my money, whether it's in shares, crypto, property, whatever your thing is, but you're investing your money that you ordinarily would have put into a mortgage and into your own home elsewhere. And I've got no problem with that, with one exception that people need to be aware of, and that's it's very difficult to change that strategy. So let's play that out. We're in South Yarra. We've got a nice lifestyle going on. We've bought an investment property, to your point, say down in Geelong. Everything's going great. And then all of a sudden, you go from one child, and then you find out that you're having twins. So you go from one child to 3, and then it's just not realistic for you to do that. And then some of your friends have also moved out of South Yarra, and they've decided. So all of a sudden, the things that were keeping you there are no longer there some 5, 6, 7 years down the track. If you want to pivot your strategy, it's difficult because you've put a lot of money and energy into going down that path. And then if you want to stop and pivot, as you know, buying your own home takes a lot of resource. For a lot of people, they're paying principal and interest. I pay interest only on a mortgage when I had mortgage on my home, which is a topic for another time. But a lot of people have principal and interest. So that commitment is extensive. So if you're going down this path, rent vesting, no problem, and then all of a sudden you want to pivot that and try and get it over here, it can set you back significantly trying to get back into the space because your plan for accumulating assets will be stopped because you will spend the next decade putting your resources into the principal place of residence, which, rewind 10 minutes ago, it's not a bad idea because of the fact of having a roof over your head. But if you've gone down the rent vesting strategy and your income isn't a phenomenal income, you're on an average or just better than average income, that will be something that you'll need to think about.
Why couldn't you just sell Geelong and then buy in Camberwell?
Well, you could, but you're going to have to pay capital gains tax on that. So you're going to lose some of that.
Yeah.
And then you're going to pay agents fees. So I've got a theory, don't sell the goose that lays the golden egg, right?
Okay.
So because it will keep on keeping on. The assets that I have in my wife and my portfolio, we plan to pass them over to the children. So you don't want to give the tax man, the real estate agent, a big chunk of your hard work. But these are options, Leonie. These are options that you've got, which is why rent vesting is better than not investing at all. Right?
Yeah.
But it's just something that you don't want to take lightly. If you go, well, I'll go down that path and then, but I'll just change my mind and buy my own home if that's what, there is some planning that comes around that. So that's why we always recommend people get a plan on paper, do these scenarios. You mentioned, listen to the podcast. We had a winter series just recently with a guy who wanted to buy a house on the beach in Adelaide. So we went through that scenario and then he goes, well, once I tested it on paper, and I ran the numbers and we did the calculations and we did all the what if analysis, I changed my mind because it's not what I wanted. So then we decided to scale back what that looked like. They bought a different house. They're super excited, super happy, which means that they could then go and add another couple of investment properties to the portfolio. So
it's so true what you're saying. Like, you've got to have that strategy up front, because if you're moving around, sell this one, buy this one, like there's so much expenditure involved in these moves that you're just giving money away, as you said. You've really got to think about what you're doing. This is big money here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the first book I wrote, which was The Armchair Guide to Property Investing, shows you, once you've trapped the surplus, what you can do, and there's different scenarios. So if anyone wants to copy that book, we'll do it for free. It's thearmchairguide.com.au. If you pay for the postage, I'll send you the book for free. But it also that's kind of the the second book we wrote was the prequel, which said, well, trap the money first, and then once you've trapped it, you then put it into. For me, I bought my first investment property in 1999. So we've been investing now. This is my third decade, which is where all the fun happens with the growth.
Yeah.
But so I've got a clear bias around investing in property. But some of your listeners may love shares, or they may love crypto, they may love art. So my thing is, put your money into the asset that you like, that you're comfortable with, that appeals to you, and then hold it for the long term. Because I like saying Warren Buffett is the most famous investor in the world, but he's actually not the best investor in the world. He gets 22% on average return each year, which is phenomenal, right? But there's a guy by the name of James Simons who is worth a mere 21 billion compared to Warren's 119 billion, and he's getting 66% per year returns, which is just insane. But nobody's really heard of him, and the reason being is Warren's been doing it since he was a teenager. He's been investing 99% of his wealth is after his 50th birthday. So there's so many books written about Warren Buffett, and people are trying to work out what's his tip and what's his technique and what's his latest, but they're missing the fundamental, all-important thing, which is time. He's just played the time game more than anyone.
Yeah.
So that's what I encourage. So in our business, we say to people, get your home if you can, buy 3 investment properties, hold them for the long term, set and forget, enjoy your life along the way, plan for some really cool things, and then you won't be one of those people that get to retirement with no roof over your head, and importantly, no form of income that's passive that can fund your lifestyle going along. So I get the question from your listener. It's hard to get in. It's always been hard. If you go and talk to your grandparents, they'll tell you how hard it was for them to get in. So nothing's changed in terms of servicing a loan. But what I will acknowledge has changed a fair bit since our grandparents is stumping up that deposit is actually factually getting harder for people to do, because being able to 10% or 20% of the price that is actually a challenge. So, what you and I have been chatting now for the last half an hour or so is around getting the house in order, trapping surplus, looking for ways to minimize cost. On the More platform, you can do some analysis to go, I'm spending this much on electricity. How does that compare to my peers in this state, in this country? Or I'm spending this much on groceries. How much does that compare? So it allows you to get a little sharper. And one of the biggest wins you can do is if you do have a mortgage, our mortgage broking team is getting lots of review work from our clients where we have a conversation and go, hey, look, it's a fact that most banks treat new customers better than they do existing ones because of margin creep. So if you can actually go and look for a better deal on your loan or actually be prepared to swap lenders, that means that you might find an opportunity to get some savings as well. So that's a big opportunity for our podcast listeners and even yours. But to go and speak to someone like our clients are doing with our mortgage broking team, because they can get sharper on rates and save that money and put it back in your pocket.
It all counts, right? Every last penny. You got to be smart about how you're doing things. I want to thank you so much, Bryce, for coming on today. For all of the work that you and Ben do. That your podcast was probably my very first property podcast that I ever listened to. And I'm not usually super loyal, but I'm so loyal. Like, we have 400 episodes in, and I'm like, when's the next episode coming out? And look, I love it because you just give so much away. And you guys say this all the time. You're like, why are you giving your book away for free? Like, why is more available for free? And I mean, I'm sure there'll be different iterations where there might be subscriptions, but certainly the foundation, you guys are so passionate in just educating anyone who will listen about being better investors, and particularly around the property market in Australia. So I just want to thank you wholeheartedly for all that you do.
Thank you, Leonie. I take it as a real compliment that you have hung in there, and certainly appreciate what you're doing to help parents and all the tips and tricks that you're passing on through this platform. But thanks for the opportunity. Hopefully there was something in it for everyone, and if they want to get access to some of those resources, I'm sure you'll put them in the show notes.
I will. They'll be in the show notes. Thanks, everyone. Bye.